Okay, so let's talk about DTT and what exactly makes up DTT, because there are 5 to 6 parts that we can really break down and analyze to help your teaching procedure through this. Okay, so let's start off with our discrete trial. There is first, should be a word that you're familiar with, antecedent. Okay, so as we know, an antecedent is the first part of something. It happens right before, right? Then we've got, secondly, the prompt, okay, or the instruction, the direction given. Number 3, the response. What is it? What's the behavior, that terminal skill that we're looking for our individual to exhibit, okay? Or what are we looking for them to learn? Okay, this should look very similar to our ABCs that we talked about before, right? Okay. But we're missing that C part, because technically this would be our antecedent, this would be our response or behavior, and then number 4 is the consequence. And as we discussed, our consequence isn't always a negative thing, right? We've got a consequence for a correct response, and then we also have a consequence for an incorrect response. So we could actually write that in 2 parts. For a minus, consequence for a plus. So it's going to be 1 or the 2 here. Consequence for positive, correct responding, or a consequence for incorrect response. And then last but not least is what we call an inter-trial interval. Okay, or the brief pause that comes after the last prompt that you got and their response before you ask it again, or you ask a different question or provide a different instruction or prompt for another program. Okay? All right, so those are the 6 crucial steps. Let's briefly look at one of our program sheets for that. Okay? We're going to take, for example, our matching picture to objects program again. So let's look at this briefly for the information that we need. Okay, we've got our objective here. So when given a picture and an array of objects as choices, and teacher says match, student will match picture to its corresponding object. Okay, this is further defined our teaching procedure here. And in here, it'll give you the prompt. So I'll read it to you. It says, place a picture directly in front of the student in an array with corresponding object approximately 12 to 24 inches from student as you say match. Matches our prompt, okay? Remember the antecedent, these are the things that come right before, okay? And our prompt, that would be us giving that direction, match. Then the response, what are we looking for this learner to do? Student will match the picture to its corresponding object. And specifically it says, as you say match, wait 5 seconds for a response. So there's that response measure. And then if the student moves the picture so that it makes contact with with the corresponding object, praise, and provide reinforcer. That's our positive response consequence, right? But if student does not move picture so that it makes contact with the corresponding object, say match, so that's reprompt, say match while modeling the matching movement. So you're actually modeling the appropriate response or what it was you were looking for. Then if student moves the picture so it makes contact with the corresponding object, praise and provide reinforcer. If student does not match the picture so that it makes contact with the corresponding object, say match again, and use physical guidance to help the student move the picture to the corresponding object. Okay, and then it gives you directions on how to code their responding. So that negative consequence or that error correction procedure of reprompting and then providing manual guidance. Remember we talked before about our prompting level, so this was pretty specific. It said full manual guidance just to help the student follow through there was provided. Okay? All right. So let's break this down a little bit and talk about each of these more specifically. So antecedent. The antecedent is the first part of our discrete trial, and it sets up the response in our original example. The antecedent was the teacher saying point to red, as well as the colored cards. So without this antecedent, Jane would not have been able to provide the correct response of pointing to the red card, and this is why the antecedent sets up the response, okay? So note that both the colored cards and the teacher's statement requests are needed for Jane to be able to answer correctly. So both are defined under the antecedent. So when writing out the discrete trial, all of the teacher's actions would be written out as the antecedent, with the antecedent abbreviated into just the letter A, right? As we talked about before from our A, B's, and C's. Using the red-blue color discrimination task, the antecedent might be written as, I could say, A, let me use a different color, A, red, and blue. Actually, we will antecedent could be written out as red, red and blue, card on desk, in front of Jane. And then teacher says, well, actually we'll say that for a prompt, okay? So red and blue card on front of desk in front of Jane. So antecedent is basically all the things you need in prep for your program. I would actually include in here as well the reinforcers that you're going to deliver, right? So that as soon as she makes a correct response, if your reinforcer isn't just verbal praise, that you've got your token economy there ready to deliver a token. Or maybe if it's a 1-to-1 reinforcement ratio, so every correct response, they get a primary reinforcer. So as soon as they do that, you give them tickles, or maybe you give them a small edible, all right? So I would have everything that you need to run the program right here as number 1.